by him, Hajin is confident that most of the important settings shouldn't change. And knowing that, he plucks away at his keyboard, modifying the attributes of his mana bullet to fit his purpose. He increases the attack power to 6 points, and spends a total of 100 story points just to make the modification possible. Loading his magazine right back into his gun, Hajin prepares for the fight and emphasizes the importance of having heroes with versatile skill sets to overcome the situation. Attributes and affinity alone allows him to climb to greater heights. As Suho and the demonic human are locked in a stalemate, this gives Hajin the perfect opportunity to take his shot. Knowing that the demonic human boasts a dark attribute, Hajin uses the only attribute that will exterminate darkness. He calls for Suho's name and shouts at him to move out of his way. Commanding the use of the light attribute, Hajin created the white light bullet. He releases a single shot that confirms the hit with the demonic human's body, and releases a blue beam of light. That one bullet completely destroys the demonic human's arm, rendering him a great deal of pain while at the same time freeing Nayun from his grasp as the dark energy evaporates. Nayun falls to the ground, while Hajin thinks his contribution is enough, now that the enemy is severely injured, allowing Suho enough time to finish the fight. His body is shaking from the use of his ability, as he places the rest of his hopes on Suho, entrusting the story's protagonist to finish the fight with a final attack. Suho charges his weapon and covers his body in an aura of blue. He activates the Sword Saint's magic power, which is so strong that it can throw anything in existence. The ultimate slash definitively ended the fight as Suho destroys the demonic human with one move. The monster is defeated as his body hits the floor. An exhausted Suho is barely clinging on, which is the same for Nayun. He catches up with her and asks if she's okay. Distraught and angry, she whacks his arm away. Hajin recommends that they leave her as she is, since her brother will soon arrive to comfort her in this situation. He knows this because it happens in the original story, but his carelessness got the better of him, as he received a shocking stare from both of the main characters. After all, an extra character like him shouldn't know anything about their lives. Nayun's voice flickers as she tries to interrogate him, but her condition gets the better of her, so she stops. Meanwhile, the monsters just outside the museum are shot down by the vice captain and her dual blades. Thankfully, the situation outside is resolved and the monsters have all been killed. She asks about the situation inside the museum and learns about the demonic human who was instantly killed, thanks to the cadets of the cube. Wanting to know more about them, she asks for their names. The vice captain is shocked to learn that Nayun, Suho, and Hajin were all involved in the incident. She rushes right to the museum because all she cares about is meeting Suho right now. Her excitement makes her wonder what she should discuss with him. Hajin is coming out of the museum when he suddenly runs into her. Curious as she is, she tries to inquire for Suho. Hajin is already one step ahead of her, and tells the vice captain that he's inside the museum. She goes inside but at once experiences a shock, because this random cube cadet seemed to know her intention of finding Suho in the first place. Yet another blunder caused by our believable author. The dude is catching a break at a park, and reflects that he didn't expect Sunga to run into him like that. He wonders if the situation is relevant to the story changing in some ways. To collect his thoughts, Hajin tries to take it from the beginning. He considers himself as nothing more than a foreign extra character, and deems his current importance as insignificant. The story has been progressing smoothly without any problems so far, so it's impossible that he was directly involved in altering its route. But then the realization finally hits him. He forgot about one thing, and that one thing is the fact that this novel also has a co-author. I bet you weren't expecting that plot twist. Hajin explains the current version of the story is a remake of his novel. This version is based around the email he received from one of his fans at the beginning of the story. That's why stuff outside of his expectations happened in the main story arc. However, if that is the case, then the predictions he was operating under so far will now all be useless. This thought terrifies Hajin because he won't know what will happen next. He checks his laptop. There's a message regarding a critique. The message reads that there weren't any main threats in the story, allowing the protagonist to easily swat away any threats and achieve a smooth victory. This kind of development will just risk the readers getting fed up with the story and getting bored. That's why, from now on, every single boss character in the story has become significantly stronger than from before, regardless of the fact that it may create an unpredictable and chaotic story setting. Their instructor calls both Hajin and Suho after the incident for a report. He has briefly explained the situation and doesn't want to go in depth regarding the specifics for now, placing priority over their well-being first. A curious and worried Suho asks about Nayun's condition, and comes to learn from the instructor how she applied for a medical leave and left with her family for the time being. The instructor advises both of them to follow suit and return to their dorms as well. Saying that, he leaves them be, allowing Suho the chance to speak with Hajin as he calls out his name. The blue-haired protagonist wants to inquire further. He wants to know why he said what he did to Nayun about her brother. For a moment, Hajin seems puzzled, but then he remembers his words. He tries to talk about it but remembers the mail he received from the co-author, and for some reason chooses to stop and ask why it matters to Suho. The protagonist is obviously not a dumbass, and feels rather annoyed that Hajin is playing the part of an idiot and taking him seriously. In his state of annoyance, he decides that they'll talk about it some other time. Let's deep dive into Chae Na-yoon's character. The author explains that she graduated 4th from her year in the military academy. She's currently enrolled at the Cube, recognized for her talents and her connections to the Chae family. She's the daughter of Shin-hyuk and the younger sister of Jin-yoon. Both are recognizable names to Hajin, who is conducting research on her right now. What he doesn't get is why she reacted in the way that she did when he brought up her brother's name. Suddenly, Hajin reads a news report involving Jin-yoon's condition resulting in critical health after a monster operation. As a consequence, Jin-yoon was left in a coma. The operation that led to his demise is one that Hajin knows about. Fiend Suppression Operation. Firestorm was supposed to be an event that allowed Jin-yoon to build his reputation by neutralizing the threat. This would help Jin-yoon improve his relationship with the main story's protagonists even more. For the young Na-yoon, the only thing that sparked joy in her eyes was seeing her older brother's success as a hero. However, the event has completely changed now, and it's different from the author's wildest imaginations. Jin-yoon is the one who caught up in his demise, leading to Na-yoon's trauma. Just then, he receives another mail from the system, notifying him that any further modifications to the story will immediately be revealed to Hajin as soon as he points out the changes from the original story. The system also relays that Jin-yoon's brother, and the supporter of the protagonist, Kim Suho, has undergone significant changes in this iteration of the story. We're given a sequence of what went down. The gravely injured hero was barely awake after suffering a brutal strike. The co-author recognized that the protagonist already had way too many supporters, which is why they made the chances necessary to ensure some of them were taken out. Poor Jin-yoon had to be one of those people. 4 years in the past, just after being appointed hero for the first time, Jin-yoon ended up becoming a demon seed. Yes, it's much more terrifying than Hajin's wildest imaginations, as he could never have predicted such a horrifying plot twist. The scene cuts to Na-yoon's place. The radio transmission is talking about the sudden monster attack that occurred at the National Museum, reporting a casualty count of 7 with 50 people injured from the incident. A devastated Na-yoon can't bear to hear the news and turns the transmission off. She sulks in her bed all by herself, while her worried father comes shouting her name. Na-yoon sees him and wonders what he's doing out of duty. Shin-hyuk doesn't give a damn about his work and asks about her health. Since she's at the hospital, he wants her to have a full checkup just to be sure. But Na-yoon pretends to be fine and just alright. She's trying her best not to make her father worry, and even thinks he did too much on his part by coming to visit her. But of course he's still a worried father who cares for his daughter, despite her claims of being fine. Na-yoon addresses her father and requests wanting to see Jin-yoon at least once before she's discharged from the hospital. Seeing her fragile state, her father approves his daughter's request. Let's go back to the Jin-yoon's demise and explore what demon seeds are. Demons are supposed to be the most powerful entities in this world, more powerful than even the fiends or humans. They possess a unique yet terrifying ability to target humans and turn them into demonic seeds. The humans who have been marked demon seeds eventually go through a period of incubation, no different from a parasitical state where the parasite is feeding on its host. Before long, the demon seed completely takes over their body, turning that person into a fully transformed demon. This means Jin-yoon's condition is much worse than anticipated, and he's going to one day become a demon. The incubation period usually lasts for half a decade before the transformation kicks in, and it's been 4 years since the event happened, meaning Jin-yoon's condition is nearing his end and he'll soon become a demon. His little sister is on her way to see him in his room. As she enters his room, Hajin reflects that there's only one solution in these situations. Before the demon inside someone's body fully manifests and takes over the human, the only way to prevent a gruesome fate is to kill them. That's what Na-yoon intends to do as she stands before her brother's unconscious state, preparing herself to speak to him. At the same time, the author thinks that it's just going to be impossible, since no one seems like the candidate to pull it off. To kill Jin-yoon before he transforms into a monster. Not even a mercenary would agree to take on such a dangerous target, as Shin-hyuk is supposed to pass down his position to the next heir, Jin-yoon. The germination process also advances without any physical changes, effectively stopping intervention from outside. The biggest problem is, the demon lurking inside Jin-yoon will be way too strong and overwhelming for the story's main protagonist, Kim Suho, to handle. Hajin also believes that if actual heroes tried to stop a demonic Jin-yoon, many of their lives would be lost dealing with a powerful demon like that. In order to prevent that dark future from coming into existence, Hajin wants to do whatever it takes to stop Jin-yoon's germination, especially since the heroes are necessary in the future events to come. As Na-yoon sits before her brother's unconscious body, Hajin gets a chilling sensation and a crushing sense of defeat. Because he has realized what he has to do in this situation. He has to be the one to commit the heinous act of taking a life, as it will prevent the darker future to come. Nayun speaks to her brother, talking about the near-death incident she had in the monster attack today. She never fought a fiend so powerful before, and believed that any ordinary cadet wouldn't have been able to stop that monster. Annoying as it is to admit, Nayun remembers Hajin being the sharpshooter who intervened and saved their lives. She ultimately decides against talking about him, and comes to learn that she has overstayed in her visiting hours. Nayun decides to leave, hoping to return to her brother soon. But as she's leaving, Nayun stops dead in her tracks, feeling a looming sense of dread coming up her brother. She had tried suppressing her memory, but there's no way she could forget about Hajin's words. With such cold eyes he said those words, which she interpreted as him bullying her in her state. Nayun's eyes flare up in determination and anger remembering what Hajin said. Let's go to the Tower of Heroes and see what Vice Captain Sunga is doing. She's out here viewing unauthorized documents on her own, risking her position and potentially getting in trouble. Sunga is interested in checking the records regarding the museum's attack, which is exactly what's concerning her assistant since she's doing something illegal. Anyway, Sunga learns from the investigation that many traces of light attribute magic were discovered from the body of the defeated demonic human, which also means that the people responsible for taking him down must have been capable of casting the attribute in the first place. The thoughts of a light attribute mana user sparking up from out of nowhere is exciting for the vice captain, since this type of hero would be an easy fight for the fiends. They're all dark attributes and light mana is their biggest weakness. Sunga wants to recruit this mysterious hero and can't wait to collect the new talent. Observing the footage files, Sunga vividly remembers there being only 3 cube cadets at the museum, which means only one of them must be a light attribute user. There's the obvious regarding Suho and Nayun, since they're already active on the hunt for both of their talents. But the vice captain is most curious about the third cadet, who they have yet to know about. To her shocking realization, the final cadet is none other than Kim Hajin, the same boy who bumped into her at the museum before leaving. Speaking of our boy, he's busy typing away at his laptop, kind of like me right now. The author expresses his new enlightenment. It turns out that no one in this world can visibly see the laptop he's working on, which is why he's easily capable of looking through the story's path without really worrying about the other characters observing him. As soon as he came to learn about the invisible laptop, Hajin went the extra mile into adding another feature. Immediately, his laptop alerts him about the changes in the story. In the training center, Rachel is giving Demian a really tough time. This chick has handed him nearly 20 L's back-to-back, to the point he's begging for someone to trade partners with him. The newest feature Hajin is related to detection and alteration. If something changes within 30 meters from the original story, Hajin will be sent an immediate alert, and this would further help him identify unusual situations in time. After all, he can't simply wait for the co-author's messages, or rely on himself to detect everything detail by detail. Using this method, he has made sure to stay on top of any unexpected situations. But while our boy is happy about the feature, he certainly didn't expect a terrifying bloodlusted Nayun popping up from behind. Distraught and angered, she requests a sparring match against our boy. Hajin stares at her and simply declines, as it wouldn't really benefit him to fight her. Nayun calls him a coward for backing out and immediately points him blame for bringing up her family out of nowhere. The rest of the students wonder if a fight is about to break out. Hajin explains that he isn't participating because of his bullets, since they could deal her some serious injuries in a training session, and he doesn't want to be a part of that. Nayun takes this comment as a mark of condescension, only getting infuriated at him more. The training instructor arrives just in time to interrupt their argument. He roars at Nayun for trying to fight with the cadet Kim Hajin, especially because he's the only student without a training weapon. Considering the potential risks and injuries involved, Hajin is strictly prohibited from training with other students. Nayun storms off in anger, leaving Hajin to realize that it may be far too late to issue an apology at this point. I mean, what he did was a stupid move as the author, but nothing can be done now. Hajin emphasizes that he has a different priority in mind, which is why he's been training like hell to get even stronger, as evident by the bruises on his hand. That priority is none other than killing Nayun's older brother, which is also why apologizing to her seems like a fruitless case. If he gets close to her now, it's going to ruin everything between them later and cause Nayun an even worse betrayal. The scene cuts from there and transitions to another club orientation. There are many students who have gathered here. The club president is Yoon Hyun, who leads the Verity Study Club. He outlines the main goal of their club, which is to conduct monster analysis and specialize in tactics research. Their goal is to meet together and engage in active discussions regarding monsters. While he's giving out the orientation speech, many students are simply charmed by his presence and allure. This charming character possesses a unique quality to capture everyone's attention without fail, but it's all a facade, and the only one who knows this is the author. Hajin internalizes that Hyun is using the power of a demon. He circles back to the first half of the story, which involves the Institution Cube as its center stage. Various events like cadet disappearances and monster invasions are supposed to occur at this level. And this guy Hyun, the leader of the club president, is actually a slick bastard who is manipulating events from behind the scenes. His looks are just deceiving. Hyun is responsible for forming a pact with the demon Lilith, and in exchange for earning her powers of enchantment, he became a fiend. Because of Hyun's true dark objectives, Hajin explains that he joined the study club for a reason. Among the cadets, Yeonha seems to also be unfazed by Hyun's charming appearance. The club president decides to showcase the students part of their usual routine and how they conduct analysis. A hologram of the upper intermediate monster called Monster Tyrant is brought up on stage. This monster first appeared right out of the explosive event that caused the invasion of towers and dungeons in their world. Until now, it has remained undefeated. Hyun highlights that any information regarding the higher-tier monsters is critical and invaluable to the institution, since this helps them make plans to subjugate monsters. More so, by just acquiring information about a monster's vital points, they can sell it for billions. A playful Hyun decides to pick his target from the audience and asks Yeonha for her opinion regarding the creature's vital points. Yeonha counters that its vital points haven't even been discovered, and she's right. But Hyun still thinks her opinion would be valued, as that is what they do as a fun activity at the club. As his closing note, the club president invites them to attend the after-party to share their opinions regarding the creature's vital points. With the speech settled, Hajin comes to speak to Yeonha, asking if she's interested in going. In response, he's just casually ignored. Bro tries again, but this time shouts at her just to get her attention. Yeonha stops to confirm that she will attend the after-party as it might help her out with some information she could use. Figuring out her intentions, Hajin blurts out and asks if she's going to use that information to lead her future assault team in her guild. This remark catches Yeonha's attention. The Straits of Essence Guild is a powerhouse with its rich history. When the monsters first emerged from the gates 50 years ago, Yeonha's clan founded this guild, which is the reason it is one of the most influential guilds in the entire country. Hajin further impresses and shocks Yeonha with his sharp knowledge of her guild's dealings. In recent times, the vice guild master seems to be the highlight for the guild, to the point that he's threatening to take over the position of the successor in line, Yeonha herself. Hajin questions if that's her main goal, to attend the after-party and acquire information. Annoyed that he's still beating around the bush, Yeonha inquires about his intentions. Hajin surprisingly offers her the deal of her life. He's willing to throw in the mountain tyrant's weakness. His sudden offer swindles her and catches her off guard. Hajin thinks it's just necessary on his part, since Yeonha has to prove to her guild that she's really serious about her business and capable of leading the guild. Hajin explains that there's a small blue mark hidden on the monster's heel, and prioritizing the attack there will help immobilize the creature momentarily. He further adds that he's not so generous to hand this information for free, as he's looking to obtain something from Yeonha's guild, a prized weapon from their essential armory. His weapon of interest is the Desert Eagle. This man is pulling out all of the stops and going full American at this point. Yeonha asks to check if he's got any proof for the mountain tyrant's weakness, since he should have some notes or documentation backing his research. To this, he smiles and bluntly confesses that he doesn't. It's a ridiculous thing to admit and say out of nowhere without any research. Yeonha's face goes blank because she realizes that he is probably bullshitting her and wasting her time. She furiously storms off, but Hajin reminds her that she'll regret not using his advice if she thinks he's lying. There's the obvious issue that she might not end up taking his words seriously, but at the same time, if Yeonha really believes him, he'll have found himself a new ally. What's really funny is that Yeonha goes outside and contacts one of her guild's handlers. She issues a message for the assault team assigned to take down the mountain tyrant. Stuttering in shame, she tells her team to target the blue mark resting on the creature's heel, as it might be its vital point. This confirms that Yeonha used Hajin's advice on a whim, even if he didn't have any proof. Hajin reflects that he may have put in a wise investment because Yeonha is destined to become the King of Seoul someday. Kim Hajin faces off his worst villain to date, a loan payment invoice. That's right, playtime's over because this dude just got hit with 300 million won. The terror in his eyes is enough to tell you everything. This guy can't even fathom how much he owes. He's hit the upper limit for student loans off the bat. This makes Hajin just what kind of miserable things Chundong does in his life to require all of that money for himself. Well, his problems have become even greater. Hajin inspects his bank account's balance and realizes that he's left with 3 million to his name. That's a fraction of the amount he owes to the institution for borrowing so much money. At this rate, bro literally has no shot of going back to his real world. Instead, he's going to be stuck here doing jobs until the end of his life, just to pay off this humongous debt. Hajin scratches his head and realizes that he needs a job, which is a relatable feeling for some of you watching this video, I hope. Now, in this world, there are two ways to actually make some money, fast and big. The author explains that the first method is through stocks. Bro is out here trying to become the next Warren Buffett. But here's the thing though, since the inception of towers and dungeons emerging all over the world right now, they are often sought and conquered by the guilds composed of heroes. Now, shares of those guilds are often listed on the stock market, allowing those shares to be traded throughout. Hajin's got the knowledge of all the guilds that are going to be listed. Once again, he's the author, so he knows this kind of stuff for no reason. The real issue is that he's got to acquire some level of capital to invest in the stocks, which means it's not going to be an immediate golf for now. The second option is the field, which Hajin believes is his only option for now. Field hunting is a unique way of earning money. The field in question is known to be a danger zone filled with monsters. Different from the typical towers and dungeon events, the fields have a large variety of monsters, which then you could hunt and earn a fortune from. It's kind of like quest hunting and then selling the corpses of the monsters you just hunted. However, the real obstacle in Hajin's case is really himself. His personal stats are shitty, barely better than the average male. So in his current state, his confidence is wavering, because he's unsure whether he could safely head into field hunting with his current skill set. The author reflects that it would normally be quite wasteful to extinguish his story points just to upgrade the training pistol he has. So he wants to find another way of upgrading his weapon, or buffing his stats. Suddenly the door rings and a voice calls out for his name, alerting him that he's received a package from Cadet Yeonha. Remembering her name, Hajin wonders what this could mean, especially since Yeonha isn't HTE type to engage with him. He opens the door to check things out anyway, and what he finds is a small box. The cadet opens the box only to be shocked by what he sees. And that's how the scene shifts to the Wonju field zone of the Gangwon province. Kim Hajin has made his way to his first field hunting event by traveling through the portals. Donning a rather clean outfit, Hajin receives best wishes from the receptionist and internalizes how cadets are well respected no matter where they go. He heads outside the portal station and into the Gangwon province. This part of the province is usually considered a low-danger area, and it quickly rose to fame and tourism from many adventurers traveling from other countries, earning them the province its newest moniker, the International Metropolis. One man shouts his request. He's looking for a party member specializing in magic so that he could enter Chiak Mountain. There's many people just like this guy, and Hajin calmly breezes through them observing what they're doing. He sees one of the employees confirming the defeat of 3 hobgoblins. Seeing this, Hajin realizes that it might be profitable for him to sell the monster loots using an agency as it would make the process smoother. He tries scouting for an agent around the area, when suddenly one man calls him from behind. This man seems to have sensed Hajin's goal and asks if he wants to hunt monsters. The cadet confirms and learns that this nervous wreck is actually an agent. He shows his business card to prove his identity. Hajin wasn't expecting him to be so anxious, however. Suddenly, the author reads the name of the agency on the business card. It's led by Park Soo-hyuk. This guy is the big shot that will one day become Suho's personal agent one day, which means that while he may be nervous, he's certainly got the skills to recruit the best of the best. He will become the CEO of Korea's top leading agency eventually. And it's strange enough that Hajin is running into him so early in the story. Right now, he's inexperienced and new, which is why Soo-hyuk is acting the way he does. Hajin takes special intrigue in their agency and forwards his hand. He's ready to have himself recruited by their agency. In his mind, Hajin knows this is just the start of the story. So many characters have yet to uncover their full potential and bloom into the characters they're supposed to be. He's basically investing in people right now by forming early connections. A sudden thought comes to his mind. Since this guy is supposed to be Suho's agent in the future, Hajin wonders if stealing him is really the right thing to do in this situation. A little while later, as they're making their way to the monster zone, Hajin asks if the agent is doing well on his own. We then see that this dude is just exhausted, like he's never done this much cardio in his life. He's probably at the verge of having a heart attack, which makes sense since cadets are physically stronger than agents who usually use vehicles to track them. As they approach the danger zone, the agent spots a bunch of hobgoblins' tracks. Hobgoblins aren't the hardest to beat, and a pair of them can lump nearly 400,000 won, so it's a good offer according to the agent. However, that kind of money is still not enough. Hajin reflects that only one of his mana bullets costs a whopping 200,000 won, which is way more expensive than he would like. So he's looking forward to earning something more than just striking down a bunch of goblins. Fixing his sights on a target, Hajin points to a boar monster just below the cliff and asks if hunting it would be fine. The agent immediately becomes worried since this is a steel boar, a monster that is known to be immune to bullets, as they're not strong or sharp enough to penetrate its skin. Hajin takes his words unseriously and happily goes ahead without a care in the world. In response, the agent is literally left speechless, since from his point of view, this is like signing your own death wish. Hajin emphasizes that he carries a pretty solid gun on him. Bro is literally saying his strap can put down anyone. More importantly, there's a reason he's so confident. Hajin just received a new gift from Yeonha in exchange for the precious information he traded. Lo and behold, this man pulls out the Desert Eagle in all of its glory. This beautifully lethal gun is further assisted with a brand new feature that he added by spending a few extra story points in the mix. The agent is against provoking the boar and warns our boy to be careful, but Hajin is pretty daring and doesn't give a damn. He locks in the target and releases a single explosive shot. That one shot literally cuts past the monster like a precise laser beam, putting it down in an instant. The sudden kill shot shocks the agent as he falls down in disbelief. The system informs him about the special feature that Hajin added. Every time he marks a kill with his weapon, its destructive power amplification is doubled. Do you know how insane that is? This man is going to become unstoppable with that ability. Hajin is quite satisfied with what he pulled off with his new weapon. Seeing Hajin's exceptional weapon as well as his shooting skills, the agent is left impressed. The boy has little time to accept the compliment and merely targets his next kill before releasing a powerful shot. The agent questions what he killed this time around. Hajin explains that he saw a black pelican from afar and decided to shoot it down. It's amazing to the agent that he can see this far with such accuracy, to the point he could shoot things in the air. Kim Hajin confirms with confidence in his abilities, playfully remarking that he possesses eagle eyes after all. He tells the agent that he'll go down the cliff to take care of the monsters. The agent runs after him in a hurry. With a black pelican down as well as a steel boar, they've acquired 2 heavy monsters back to back. Hajin asks if he's capable of safely transporting them back. Soo-hyuk explains that it would be rather convenient to pay the dispatch fee and call the logistics crew. He even calculates a budget for the amount they'll receive after taxes. Hajin is simultaneously impressed by his keen attention to detail, which will soon become the agent's reason for national fame. He shakes Hajin's hand in confidence, and the two of them hope to work together, extending their partnership in the future. The agent recalls Hajin mentioning that it was his first experience in field hunting. From that, he wants to know how the boy is going to spend his money once he receives it. Like a true businessman, Hajin expresses that he's going to buy stocks, completely shattering the man's expectations with his answer. The fledgling guild called Packhorse Masters was originally founded by a demonic human or fiend. In the original story, they play a big role. Sitting at his laptop in his room, Hajin reflects that the guild isn't the thing that should be worrying him. It's rather the upcoming dungeon assault. In the main story, the Packhorse Masters Guild raid the Devil's Lair dungeon. Right after this raid, the stock prices of this guild go crazy out of the water, climbing up by nearly 1,000%. That's why he's happily investing his money in buying their stocks early so that he can reap the benefits of the boom later. It's the easiest and most efficient way to make money after all, thanks to his foresight about the future. Spending 3 million won, he completes the purchase and wonders if there's some other place he can find information regarding stocks. Hajin couldn't figure out much on the internet forums, so he thinks a sketchy website like the Violet Haze might be of some use to him instead. Come to think of it, Hajin remembers something. He remembers the masked syndicate, who became responsible for playing the part of the main villains in the second half of the story. Just like their name, they're a criminal organization without much information about its members. However, since he's the author of the novel, he knows their exact identities as well as their hideout. Hajin figures that he might be the only one in the world to know about them. While these guys are nasty criminals on their own, they still despise fiendish humans like they're even worse. Hajin wonders if he can strengthen his connection with the leader of the masked syndicate, which would somehow help him take down Chai Jinyun someday when he is resurrected as a demonic human. Figuring out his options, Hajin believes that there should be a vacancy in the organization, meaning he has a chance to act. As he's conducting his search, the laptop screen suddenly shuts off, surprising Kim Hajin as he draws his face near in worry. This is a terrible thing that's happened to him. The laptop was his only way of returning to his previous world. Losing it would set him back immensely. Fortunately, it turns back on, relieving him to some degree. 1 whole month has passed since he got into this world. The laptop is receiving a sudden update. Bro was hit with the Microsoft update and nearly collapsed, thinking he'd lose his work. Anyway, let's cut to another scene. At a restaurant, a couple is sitting by themselves, attracting the attention of the people. It's the disinterested Jonghak and the delighted Yeonha. Jonghak starts the talk expressing his annoyance. He doesn't want to take part in polite and noble meetings like this. Yeonha pokes fun at him and thinks he's only gaining benefits from partaking in this meeting. After all, he's talking to someone who is destined to lead society one day. She asks about his grades and learns that he's doing just okay. Yeonha mocks him for not pursuing first place. But the thing is, Jonghak believes his grades are just okay specifically because he's in second place. Bro is winning but has really high standards for himself. Interrupting their meet and greet comes an unexpected guest. It's the dazzling Nayun, Jonghak's crush. This guy literally springs up from his chair and breaks his personality just to gain her attention. Seeing him jump up like that with so much interest turns Yeonha off, since she really likes him. Jonghyuk checks on Nayoon and asks if she's doing alright. Nayoon expresses that she was fine, but while their bickering is going on, Yeonha is getting irritated at being ignored. All of a sudden, Nayoon brings up Kim Ha-jin's name and catches Yeonha's attention. Yeonha turns to Nayoon and inquires about him. The girl explains that during the demonic human incident at the National Museum, there were only 3 cadets, and one of them just so happened to be Ha-jin. The demonic human got the better of them and crushed both Suho and Nayoon, so much so they couldn't beat him until one man stepped in the fight out of the blue. Kim Ha-jin annihilated the fiend's hand with his shot, and Nayoon was there to bear witness to the impossible event. She couldn't believe how he could pull that off with a training pistol, which leads her to wondering about his real motives. Yeonha is in deep thought when Nayoon decides to ask more about him. She wants to know what Yeonha thinks of the guy, especially since they were teamed up together in their first training. The girl flinches to respond. It turns out that she did a background check on Kim Ha-jin because of her own suspicions. She learned that he's just an orphan who joined the Cube and owes a staggering debt of 300 million. But apart from that basic information, it's not like she knows anything out of the blue about him. What's more, she can't figure out how he came to know about the Mountain Tyrant's vital point, something that not even the top researchers or analysts knew at the time. Yeonha remembers trying to ask him how he knew, but he was being a stubborn hard ass about it and refused to elaborate. That's why she wanted to investigate him, because Yeonha thinks he's going to become a useful asset to the guild one day. Yeonha expresses that she first thought of him as an unremarkable person. She collects her thoughts and reasons that his attacks in the training round weren't nearly strong enough to take down an entire fiend's arm just like that. So based on that information, she deduces that he must be hiding a secret ace card that he keeps hidden from others. Nayoon whispers an interesting suggestion, that Kim Ha-jin might actually be a fiendish human himself. This suggestion coming from her baffles both Jonghyuk and Yeonha in place. Even the purple-haired brat has a hard time believing a fiend would kill another fiend just like that. Nayoon can't figure out what, but she knows that there's something weird going around Kim Ha-jin. Speaking of which, Ha-jin's laptop is acting weird and is close to reaching 100% update. Suddenly, he senses a warm sensation emerging from his wrist. The pain becomes sharper, and blood splotches begin appearing on his sleeve. Ha-jin panics as his wrist burns in painful sensations. The newest update is creating a stigma representing the creator's authority. Every time he increases his influence and the story point level evolves, his mark will evolve as well. The magic contained within the mark could be deployed whenever necessary, and after using it once, it will replenish back in 24 hours. Ha-jin experiences headaches and pains throughout his body. It's as if information is flooding inside his brain, and he's got no way of resisting it. Back at the restaurant, Jonghyuk slams his palm on the table, irritated to find Nayoon upset by Ha-jin's recent actions. During this time, Ha-jin can barely even stand and collapses to the ground. Jumping back to Nayoon, she can't help but remember those cruel words uttered by Kim Ha-jin. Nayoon confirms that she really doesn't like him at all. Ha-jin rests unconscious. His body gives up on him, and we see the stigma mark that he received from the latest update. The laptop receives a sudden notification for him. A new ability has been added to his observation and reading gift, enhancing its effects. Let's go to the Association Tower in Seoul. You see, right after the incident at the National Museum, Suho, Nayoon, and Ha-jin were involved in the fight and received certificates of commendation for their amazing deed. Their efforts were recognized for their service to the city. Kim Ha-jin's wrist still throbs in pain from what happened yesterday. He's better now, but the pain is noteworthy. What's more, he's yet to figure out what its purpose is. Kim Ha-jin has the unfortunate encounter of sitting next to Nayoon, who is madly pissed at him and tells him to shut the hell up, even when he didn't say a damn word. Nayoon is so annoyed by his mere existence that she can't handle him next to her. Ha-jin curiously asks if she's yet to have forgotten something he did. Then he reminds her that on that very day, he also saved her damn life with his powers. Nayoon is a little frustrated to hear this coming from him, but it's not like he isn't speaking the truth. She lashes out at him, which invites Suho to stop their banter. He even offers Nayoon to switch seats to help her out, but this stubborn ass doesn't want to do that either. After a long argument, she manages to switch seats with Suho, who sits next to Ha-jin and prepares himself for a talk. He thanks Kim Ha-jin for saving their lives, something our boy clearly wasn't expecting them to admit. Suho confirms that without his intervention, they would have lost that fight, so he became their saving grace and earned their gratitude. But our boy is a chill guy. He thinks they could have won anyway, even if he didn't intervene. See, if Ha-jin wasn't around to save their skin, it's likely that Suho would have pulled out his plot armor and evolved to a greater level of power just to take down the threat. That's the literal point of the protagonists in the story after all. Each time they're faced with danger, they always get back up and get stronger. The scene switches to the auditorium, where one of the most prominent heroes in the entire world is making his entrance. Donning long hair with a notable outfit filled with dragons, the man walks with a confident yet disinterested stride, commenting on how useless his current task is. This man is Yu Shihyuk, a top-tier hero considered ranked 37th in the association. In his dominant presence, the entire crowd is silent. Everyone can sense the strong aura emanating from him. This marks the beginning of the award ceremony, where Nayoon, Suho, and our boy Hajin are all awaiting. The awardees are called to step on the stage. These 3 cadets are selected for their honorable act in service of the city. The awards are granted by Shihyuk, one of the most notable heroes in the association, all for the sake of blessing the cadets for their brilliant act in exterminating a demonic threat and saving the lives of the innocents in the city. First, Shihyuk addresses Suho and hands him the reward. He sees promise in Suho's powers and comments that he's a talent worth recruiting. Suho is granted the honorable certificate just when Shihyuk makes a crazy offer to him. He wants the boy to forget the association totally and completely start working for him as a hunter for Forsaken Plains Guild. He reminds Suho that the role of a hero is just plain and boring, involving a ton of responsibility that Shihyuk himself doesn't value. However, the confident boy declined his offer, content with his choice to become a hero despite those words. Shihyuk feels like he just had the fun reaped out of him and moves on to his next cadet. In the presence of Shihyuk, Nayoon seems to be flustered because he seems to recognize the girl. Turns out this dude is actually her master. Well, that's what Nayoon would like to believe, because in truth, Shihyuk doesn't really find her a student at all. It's just that her father begged him to train her, and that's how they got to this point. His disappointing yet blunt truth kills her enthusiasm and makes our boy happy because this bitch deserves to be humbled a little. And then comes the final cadet. Shihyuk seems to really like Hajin right off the bat, because he doesn't recognize this plain-looking kid at all. The first question he asks is who he is, because that's how insignificant and plain he seems. Hajin describes the situation by comparing it to indifference. It's as if his presence is being completely ignored because Shihyuk doesn't pay him any attention like the others. The award ceremony concluded just like that, as boring as that sounds. Cadet Nayoon is the first student to be asked about her thoughts after receiving her award. Well, after the ceremony, our boy is the happiest he has ever been. He's just received 15 whopping millions as the prize money for the fiend extermination. It's great because he's gonna need everything. He's gotta cover that 300 million. He sits by himself and decides on how he'll invest the rest of the money. His interest is to buy more stocks from the guild. In the meantime, he's dying to inspect the new features his laptop received right after the painful update. Upon opening his laptop, he sees a message, notifying him about the updated functions. The first is the stigma mark he received, the second is the internet activation, the last one is the tome of truth added to his observation and reading skill. The stigma mark is related to what happened to his left arm, but there's almost little to no description provided on it. It just tells him he can use magic whenever needed. While it does say that, Hajin is having a difficult time figuring his way on activating his ability. Just as he's thinking about the activation, the mark forms a crest, signifying that it is about to activate. Scared that he might blow some shit up here, Hajin wants to take these risks back at the dorm where no one else can see him. It's going to be troublesome if someone spotted him after all. The second update is regarding internet activation. Hajin hovers his cursor over the button and clicks on it. After a brief pause, the screen redirects him to a bunch of different websites, like Law Abiding Spirit, Violent Haze, Jeremy's Sword, and some others. Not only is he getting free access to normal websites, he's also getting the restricted websites for free. Of all the websites he sees, the most important one is the Violet Haze, which has everything he needs. It's the most famous out of all the membership websites, serving as a place to trade critical information, weapons, rewards, requests, and much more. There's only a few heroes that don't use this website. Because of that, the government has decided to turn a blind eye to the trading of the underground. There's a crazy access fee that is necessary to be paid just to access this website. In our boy's case, all he needs to do is spend 200 of his precious story points. He does the purchase to create his account for the time being, and the moment he is thinking about connecting to a particular page, someone calls for him. It's the beautiful Sunga, and the vice captain has caught him. She knows that Hajin knows about her identity, and she also remembers how he is the only person who disappeared from the ceremony a while ago. She came here to especially hand him the card of their guild, the Holy Grace of God. This isn't just any deal, as even Hajin believes earning this card means a big accomplishment. Sunga has a bunch of important questions to ask him, so she sits down and wonders if he's willing to entertain her with them. Of course, Hajin already suspects that she's interested in scouting him potentially, so she sits down and asks if he's prepared to help her out with her questions. Normally, Sunga looks the most kind when represented in the media, but in reality, she possesses a different side to her. Even the best of the best talents are kicked around when it comes to her. She only cares about the best of the best and deals in absolutes, leaving behind anyone that is unnecessary and unimportant. That's the true personality of the Vice Guildmaster, Shunga. Forming a connection with her at this stage is going to be tantamount to Hajin's success in the future events to come. So that's why, before she even wants to speak to him, Bro just cuts her off and coldly states that he's got nothing new to tell her. After facing this rejection, Sunga tries her best to clarify things. She wants to tell him that she's the one expressing a key interest in him, and surely reminds him that she's the Vice Guildmaster of Korea's top guild. Hajin seems to acknowledge her position and ranking, but he's dismissive of it because he knows she came here for personal reasons. He knows for a fact that Sunga is only coming here because she reviewed the footage of him using the light attribute shot. It's not like she's genuinely interested in recruiting him right now. Instead, she wants to satiate her curiosity with a bunch of curious questions. That's why this dude is playing hard to get, to make himself seem like he's got everything going for him. This way, he's going to swindle her emotions and eventually receive her actual interest instead of the fickle curiosity she has right now. This man pulls out a power move and states that he's going to take his leave at once, shocking the heck out of Sunga. Back to reviewing his stigma ability, more information about its use is provided. When his total story points exceed a threshold, then the attention score will increase by 1 level and another stroke will be added to his mark. It also makes it clear that Hajin can activate its power whenever he desires, and after using it once, it will be replenished in the time span of 24 hours. To test his newest ability, Hajin concentrates his focus on forming a dagger via his magic. All of a sudden, the mark forms him a mythical blade out of nowhere. The dagger is actually a real deal, as Hajin moves it around and feels like it's ready to be used at once. The thing about magic is that it's a stat influenced by one's innate talent and knowledge. Since Hajin popped inside of this world without any explanations about his background, he naturally assumed he wouldn't be capable of handling magic at all. But he's happy that he's found a way to use magic in his own way, through the stigma's powers. The last thing he wants to try out is the Tome of Truth, which is supposed to enhance his pre-existing skills of observation and reading. Hajin thinks for a moment, and decides to call out the ability's name. The ability triggers his stigma once more, materializing a book containing the truth. The mystical energy of the book allows Hajin the ability to answer any question, as long as it is within the scope of its magic. Now how crazy is that? Even the author stops for a second to digest what he just read. To check if it's bullshitting him or not, he asks about his height. Turns out our boy is a short king standing at 174 centimeters, or just over 5 foot 8 inches in freedom units. Using the Tome of Book consumes 1 story point for every question as a cost. Suddenly, Hajin's smartwatch beeps crazily, calling for a sudden emergency alert from the school. There's a group message coming from someone who is asking for a student's location. Seeing this red emergency notice, our boy wonders what it's about. He thinks it may have triggered the second major event that is supposed to occur in the main storyline: the serial disappearances of the cadets at the Cube. This episode will involve the disappearance of 6 cadets from out of nowhere. The culprit responsible for the act is meticulous in covering their tracks and doesn't leave a single trace behind. The investigations are all useless, causing the number to only increase, as if they are all trapped in an endless game. Hajin remarks that this episode is important, because the perpetrator's final target is supposed to be none other than Yu Yonha herself. Now, even Hajin knows that things would be troublesome for him if the co-author interfered in this part of the story and edited in some changes, since they could threaten to just remove one of the main characters like at the museum incident. Our boy takes matters into his own hands to catch the criminal, but thinks that even that would be proven fruitless, since his needless interference will disrupt the course of the story forever. All he can do for the meantime is simply wait and observe for the story to go down. The scene switches to the training center the next day. Suho is replenishing himself with water when one of his friends points to the scene just up ahead. While Hajin is attempting to work out and enhancing his physical strength, a bunch of annoying bullies come to tease him and disrupt his workout. They call him a loser for being unable to lift a simple weight, despite being enrolled at the prestigious institution. They even suspect that he must have bribed his way inside. Suho tries to help him out since he has a strong sense of justice, but his friend grabs him and pulls him away. Suho can't believe that the class rep Younghan isn't doing anything to stop those guys. But Younghan explains that it's clear from those delinquents that Hajin somehow got on the bad side of Jonghak, which is why any involvement will label Suho a target as well. There's also a possibility that these guys are faking to test his reaction. Suho can't believe what he's hearing, but Younghan thinks that a dude who shattered the demonic human's arm couldn't be afraid of dealing with a bunch of amateurs all by himself. He's of the opinion that Hajin deliberately hides his true strength. But this theory is proven ridiculous pretty quickly, because our boy cannot for the life of him lift that barbell. He's just struggling out here before giving up. Even the losers think that he's just pathetic. Younghan is starting to believe that luck may have been on his side. This fake-ass switched sides so quickly. Anyway, Suho ignores him and rushes to save Hajin anyway. The rest of the cadets quickly realize that a fight is about to break out, and Nayun is eavesdropping too. Once again, their instructor comes out roaring like an angry dad. He's pissed that they're making a mockery out of their training session. The instructor tells the students to gather around for their scores for the quiz to be revealed. The sheet will be put on the wall so everyone can view the results in groups. The cadets come around checking the board and realize that a ton of them were annihilated in the quiz. In that very same quiz, only one student's name is at the top. It's none other than Kim Hajin, the same annoying cunt who couldn't even lift a simple barbell earlier. Rachel and Jonghak are respectively second and third. I mean, Hajin isn't surprised by this outcome, since he practically knows about everything in the story he authored himself. Seeing his result, a girl's rapier drops on the ground. This is Rachel, and she's utterly speechless by what she sees. She's the British princess who ranked third in the admissions. There's only one notable detail about this girl's character, and that is the fact that she never places second in any given written test, no matter what. So the fact that she's just scored second has winded her. She stares at him as if she's seen a ghost of some kind. Hajin is stunned too, not knowing what to say. Let's explore what happened back when Rachel first got accepted into the cube with her brilliant result. Her attendants were all worried for her, that she might be taking part and standing next to one of the world's best hero candidates very soon. What's more, she'll have no one to relate to as everyone in her class would be Korean. Rachel was okay with that, never feeling a sense of anxiety, and simply wanted to live up to the expectations of others, for the sake of the royal family. But today, she has felt a sense of dread, defeat, and disappointment unlike any other. She feels like she has failed her countrymen with her performance. The teacher reviews Hajin's notes in class, specifically pointing out the boy's brilliance in writing a new take on phenomenological analysis. He's even given a special mention to be followed as an academic weapon. Now, Rachel knows that the subject of phenomenology isn't just any easy subject to master. She doesn't even think it's possible for her to close their gap before midterms come around. This aloof and lost boy Kim Hajin is finessing her, when he doesn't even pay any attention to his lectures. Burning with inspiration and an aching desire to know how he studies, Rachel takes a wider interest in him. At the information office, our boy is digging up a bunch of his queries. He's finally acquired the Tome of Truth to answer all his problems, so it should help him out. Thanks to this new shiny ability, he can learn about anything in this world, or whatever gaps of knowledge he has at the cost of spending just a bunch of his story points, especially since he has nothing going for him right now and wouldn't really make a profit. Hajin is hoping for things to get better eventually. He goes to complete agent registration, and from here, he wants to use some of his precious story points to take care of the rest. Let's talk about the second major event that's going to happen in the story. Right after it happens, the institution's position as a place of security and authority is put under fire by the people. It is no longer considered a safe zone. The thing is, even with his current powers, Hajin believes he's too weak to solo a fiend all by himself. However, he has been getting a shit ton of story points after Jonghak got annoyed with him and sent his little goons. That's turning into his benefit and working things out for the guy. Hajin wants to spend some of the points to ensure his survival for the things to come in the future. The first area of interest is increasing his weapon buffs. Since he has the Desert Eagle handgun with him, he wants to add a convertible function to the gun, allowing it to become a sniper rifle. Now, I don't know about you, but a handgun transforming into a sniper rifle just sounds cool as fuck. Hajin wonders if he's doing a little overkill with this feature, but he still ultimately makes the decision by spending 250 story points for the added feature. Right that moment, his gun warps and takes the form of a beautiful gold sniper rifle, reflecting its changes. Even Hajin is impressed by the skill, but he thinks it's too flashy for a gun and will draw a lot of attention, so he reverts it back to its handgun state for now. Next, his focus is to create a technique that's going to help him out. He has 3 slots to work things out. What differentiates the supernatural and magic-based powers called abilities from techniques is that they're considered honed physical skills that are acquired instead of given. Arguably the most important skill for a ranged weapon user's survival to prioritize any successful elimination is positioning themselves in top advantage. So right now, the technique Hajin is hoping to acquire is related to getting him the ideal position for him to avoid any mishaps in the future. He types away at his laptop, auditing the E-Technique's skills. At last, the technique's properties are there for him to use. It's a skill he decided to call parkour, and it helps with helping him become an agile monster throughout the field. This will ensure that he keeps moving and doesn't stay stuck in one place to expose his position. For this effect, 350 points have been consumed. But strangely, our boy doesn't seem to feel anything different from his body. He's at least confident that he scored some changes, although he doesn't feel them. Suddenly, his smartwatch receives a notification. It's a group message, and this time, people are looking for Sung Yeon, the girl who has become the second victim of the perpetrator from within the institution. Hajin explains that the students who disappeared before Yeonha were actually murdered by the culprit in cold blood. This means the moment they disappear, they're as good as gone. Since he's the author, he knows about this dangerous, mysterious villain acting from behind the scenes. He also knows the persons that will be involved in the disappearance. Faced with this morally gray situation, Hajin wonders if he should really be turning a blind eye to what's happening right now for the sake of the story and his personal benefit. That's an interesting question, though. Tell me what you guys would have done in the comments below. Would you be pragmatic or ethical? These kinds of thoughts are weighing heavy on the author, who is trapped in a tough situation with no right answers. The scene shifts to the outdoor training ground under the cube's premises. The instructor leads the announcement for each cadet and explains that they're going to be part of a special practical training session. The cave they see just up ahead is actually called an artificial dungeon, and it was created thanks to the magical wonders of magic tech. This place is inhabited by illusions of the real monsters, so in a way, it's the best form of training possible to train the cadets to fight against real monsters in the future. That's why the cadets will be participating in a mock dungeon assault mission today. However, the instructor intently reminds them that they shouldn't take the exercise lightly just because it's training, or it may come at a cost to them. The thing about the artificial dungeon is that it's immense in size, which is why the two groups called Veritas and Cultural will work together in order to effectively dismantle it. One team from each unit will merge to form an assault team to tackle the dungeon. The instructor tells them to make their own teams from here on out. There's countless chatter of the students trying to link up and communicate with each other so they could form teams. Among them is also Team 8, consisting of our boy Hajin and the rest of his allies like Yeonha, Hazuki, and Hosung. From the cultural unit, they have Jaden, Jingyu, Sujung, and Jinsha, making it a team consisting of 8 cadets total. In the artificial dungeon, there are many terrifying traps waiting for them. Some of these traps were deliberately planted by the fiends, which is at least Hajin suspects. To tackle the possibility of dealing with demonic humans, he's already prepared a bunch of special bullets for them beforehand. But even at this level, Hajin is confident in himself and wonders if he's going to survive this practical training event. Suddenly, the system begins roaring out a warning informing him about the discrepancy caused in the story. This is troublesome for the author, especially since he won't know what those changes are. The worst part is, 3 aspects of the story have been altered in one event, so it's definitely cautioning Hajin, who doesn't know what's going on or who's causing such alterations to occur. As the teams are gathering up, Hajin's biggest worry is that he doesn't know about the changes. While he's completely lost in thought, Kim Suho's teammate, Yuna from the culture unit, mocks him for being a dumbass and not paying attention to the instructor. The system informs him about Yuna's temper rising. At the same time, Yeonha gets to meet Jaden from the cultural team. But she doesn't share the dude's enthusiasm and has a dead look on her face. The system informs that Jaden's growth potential has also increased based on this interaction. Then lastly, Nayun interacts with a specific cadet that she's seen around at the hunting club. The cadet introduces himself as Sven, donning a beautiful pair of blue eyes and a charming smile. He's paired up with her, but for some reason, his mental breakdown is only worsening, which also means he is highly susceptible to become a demon puppet during the raid. Hajin is just baffled listening to these story changes popping up from out of nowhere, and he is deeply troubled since they're going to impact the story to a significant amount. The author fixates his attention on the 2 characters that he has to keep a sharp eye on. The first of them is Jaden from Team 8, since he's supposed to be a delinquent-type character with a personality of a bully. While he possesses the qualities of a fine cadet, what's really bothering Hajin are the growth potential points he's receiving from out of nowhere. Jaden politely introduces the rest of his team, those being Jingyu, Sujun, and Jinsha. From Yeonha's side, she does the same, but she tends to misremember our boy's name, causing him annoyance. It's funny because I think she called him Lee Hajin just to fuck with him. Back to his thoughts, Hajin focuses on what he should do regarding his second topic of interest, Sven. This dude is actually on a government scholarship since he's considered an elite candidate hero from Germany. There's only one detail to note about this guy, and it's the fact that he's got the hots for Nayun. Is it me or does everybody just like Nayun? Someone needs to check if she made a contract with the Demon of Enchantment. Anyway, like the rest of the international students inside the institution, Sven came with the purpose of attaining glory and reaching the very heights of success. But that remains to be an unfulfilled dream for him, especially when talents like Nayun, Suho, and even Yeonha are in the picture as the main characters. Seeing their monstrous and brilliant abilities, Sven became lost and mentally torn. He had never felt true inferiority and humbling defeat before coming to the institution. His insecurities got the better of him, which is why in his mad pursuit for power, Sven sells his soul in exchange for ultimate strength. Well, those are the details the author wrote that he's confident about. The real problem is that his transformation is going to happen during the raid. It has moved forward in the timeline, and while he's hoping it doesn't have much of an impact, Hajin is still worried. His thoughts are crushed by Jaden's sudden greeting, who squeezes his shoulder and reminds him not to get lost in his thoughts. Hajin snaps away his arm to push him off. Jaden is too quick to denote him as a scumbag and thinks the rumors about him must all be true. Hearing those words, Hajin internalizes that his reputation is at an all-time low right now. A particular rumor has taken effect in the Orbis unit, causing many people to set their sights on him. The rumors are that he's using his status as a cadet to intimidate other people, but it's one of those rumors that are manufactured from out of nowhere to talk shit about a person. It's pretty clear who made the rumors though, since Hajin knows it's definitely related to Jonghak and his lackeys. Seeing his so-called friends, Hajin is a little upset that Hazuki and Hoseung aren't even stepping in to help him out here despite being a team. Anyway, the order of the teams is decided, and they'll start entering from Team 1. In the meanwhile, Jaden tries to chat up Yeonha in any attempts of rizzing her. He goes on talking on and on about how their teams are a mix-up of being overpowered right now. They even shit-talk Hajin for being a dead weight, which is just funny. It's like all the haters gathered in one team and their victim is poor Hajin. At last, it's time for Team 8 to enter the dungeon. They pull up inside, seeing the artificial cave in all its glory. They walk together and explore the dungeon with Jaden being the most confident ahead. Suddenly, they find a place with many paths. A curious Yeonha wonders which path will be the most effective to take. Jaden explains that they always have Jingyu as a ranged weapons user to rely on. Hajin breaks his silence and suggests exploring route number 6 out of the blue. His sudden interruption annoys Jaden a lot, but strangely, Yeonha seems to trust his gut and actually accepts his suggestion. Her sudden approval surprises Hajin, and while she calls him useless in front of the group, she can't help but admit that he's got a good pair of eyes on him. Hajin is a little upset that she has to drag his name through the mud just to give him a compliment. He's okay with it as long as they can meet Nayun down the same route. The thing about Sven is that he might really end up making a pact with the demon lurking inside the cave. That's why the burden will fall on Nayun, and she's going to have a tough time dealing with him alone. If she falls right now, the rest of the story will be in shambles since her character is crucial to forwarding the plot. She's an invaluable piece that can't be lost. They enter Path 6, but Jaden is still a jealous bitch who calls Hajin an attention seeker. Our boy doesn't care about his insults and simply chooses to focus on the monsters ahead. The rest of the cadets can't see a thing in the dark, but Hajin seems to be fine with spotting a salamander in the near distance. He also thinks it might be some kind of dungeon switch, which could reveal some properties about the dungeon. Worried, Jingyu thinks he should try shooting a light arrow and check things out for them. With Yeonha's approval, he prepares a shot and releases it, carving a path of light just ahead. To everyone's shock, there is indeed a salamander monster up ahead. Jaden is shocked while Yeonha alerts everyone to get into battle position to strike this bitch down. Hajin, on the other hand, is anticipating something before making his move. Yeonha brings out her signature whip weapon and takes on the battle head-on. She unleashes her strong whip aimed at the beast, interrupting it, charging an attack from its mouth. I'm not going to lie, this dude looks like a Pokemon. With its mouth restricted, Hazuki and the other melee fighters pounce in to crush the monster with their powerful attacks. Since it's only a hologram, they defeat it rather easily, suffering little to no consequences from the fight. Yeonha hears the rumbling sound and realizes that the dungeon is transforming after the monster's defeat. The electric charge coming from her whip is observed by Hajin, who is impressed that she has already awakened her Eve of Awakening power. Just as they're about to move, Hajin trips on a pebble and crashes on top of Yeonha from behind. At the same time, a sharp projectile swiftly misses them by the mark, which would have hit if he didn't stumble just now. Both of them hit the ground in a hard crash. Hajin's face is sweating bullets because he knows he's dead now. Yeonha tries to ignore his bullshit act and tries to ignore him for a moment, but then she gets fired up and wants to beat him up. As she's preparing to beat him down, the rest of their teammates point to the arrow that nearly killed them just now. It's during this moment that Hajin realizes that when they stumbled just now, they actually avoided a lethal poison arrow. The scene cuts to Sven, who has been injured by one of such arrows and begs Nayun to leave him behind. Carrying his heavy-ass weight, Nayun shouts at him to shut up if he can't run. She still can't believe what happened earlier. An arrow from out of nowhere came flying and hit Sven from behind. She couldn't believe that it was a part of their training, so she made a run for it. Especially since this is an artificial dungeon where situations like these aren't supposed to happen. Now let's explore the giant ass demon she's trying to escape from. This lava golem is a mini Godzilla that's chasing after Nayun. No wonder she's pissed at Sven for yapping shit while being injured. The artificial cave has its training underway for the cadets. They're busy fighting the fire salamanders shooting beams from their mouths. Hajin's team is defending against them pretty well, especially the cultural unit. They defend and counterattack with long-ranged weapons. The same goes for Hajin and Yeonha, who are swiftly